relentless curiosity is one of our core values: customer obsession, grit, integrity, and realizing potentials. We just don't have a choice but to obsess over the success of our customers. U.S. middle class was built in manufacturing. It's been gutted by the financial and technology elites on the coast. And this is pushing in the opposite direction, where you have tens of thousands of small manufacturers. Virtually every other system out there has a paper-based plant floor in the end markets that we serve, and that leads to an incompleteness of data, lack of visibility, lack of control. So we take your plant entirely digital. We obsess over the production floor, and it's an all-in-one system for small, medium-sized manufacturers in the United States of America.
Jeff, super excited that you were willing to let us interview you. Andy and I have been sharpening some questions, but we always start these interviews. So, our interview series podcast, call it what you want, is titled "It's the People," and I think it was Randy, our venture partner, who gave us this name, because it was he and one of our limited partners who said, "You know what? I know you guys invest in software companies and they build great technology, but at the end of the day, it's all about the people." And we try to make these interviews as much about you and your team as we can, and less so about the technology. So we always start them in the same way. Can you give us the Jeff Halonen life story in 60 seconds? We'll give you a little bit more time if you need it, but walk us through your whole life story.
Sure. Yeah, I've born and raised in Brighton, Michigan, just outside of Detroit and Ann Arbor, so southeast Michigan, and went for mechanical engineering at Michigan Tech. Went and worked at General Motors for 4 years in 3 different roles, and kind of got a little bit impatient with the 40-year career at a large company doing 40 hours a week, and started a technical sales company. And that was trying to sell hard things. We sold AI, PC, PLC controls. We sold ERP software. We sold engineering services. We sold logging software, essentially a go-to-market firm. We didn't call ourselves that because we didn't know what that acronym meant, but that's what we were doing. And we purposely tried to sell hard things, and we bumped into a shop that had a really strong need and essentially pleaded for us to start Steelhead, and that's what we've been doing. I'm actually going to that shop in Toronto tomorrow. Got a nice 4.5-hour drive, so leaving the office here at 4:30 in the morning. I'll be back for the evening there. But yeah, on the personal side, I have myself and my wife have 3 boys, 10 months to just about 5 years old. And yeah, I spend a lot of time with them, farmers markets, go play baseball, stuff like that.
Hockey, I know.
Hockey, yeah.
Can you take us back even further in that life story? Like, tell us maybe the 60 seconds, the beginning. What was Jeff as a kid?
Yeah, so we had I have a lot of siblings. I have 9 siblings, so it's a lot of self-sufficiency, a lot of not a lot of really structured Boy Scouts and then advanced classes, and parents driving you to every little extracurricular. Grab the kayaks and go back in the swamp and go fishing for a Saturday, or take the 4-wheeler and go plow driveways and go rake pine cones, go door to door and drum up some business. You want a car? Great. Here's a $500 1990 Bonneville. Insurance is $60 a month, and you need to figure out a way to get some cash if you want to have wheels. And I had wheels from 16 on, and you can feel like a king in a 1990 Bonneville with a hole in the exhaust. It turns out doesn't take much.
Gotcha. And as you think back on that early piece of the story, are there any specific moments or memories that jump out that you think really defined the person you've become, the path that you've taken, your professional career?
I mean, certainly watching your parents and others that hold themselves and behave. It's really the behavior, it's not the words, but to a really high kind of moral and ethical standard and consistency, being, honestly just like a good person. And so that built a really solid foundation, but then also just a combination of, like, you do it yourself. Like, I'm not going to talk to you about your homework assignments this week, but there's an expectation for performance at the end of the day on the report cards or whatever it may be, where it's like, you got to see, like, what do you mean you got to see? Like that's just unacceptable. But at the same time, I'm not going to get, I never did, right? Week 2 of the class, did you get this assignment? Did you get it? So zero micromanagement, but at the end, there was expectation of results. So, I just happen to have, like, I think it was in 6th grade, and go a quarter mile at the bus stop by myself. Just minor stuff where it's like, all right, you just go ahead, go figure it out. And so a lot of autonomy. and high expectations for success and a lot of model behavior that was very grounded in family and values and just being a good person, I guess. So I don't know. That probably meant more than.
Was there a specific memory?
Ah. I mean, I didn't really come out of the gates as like a hard charging entrepreneur. I was pretty go to General Motors and kind of plod along in a 40-hour week. Um,
Something your mom did, your dad did,
I
your
mean, probably probably
parents.
probably plotting the. Yeah, I mean, my dad started several businesses, but yeah, I mean, I think a part of it is like my mother was very resourceful and frugal, and that really put me in a position from starting a business, and a lot of our other co-founders behave very similarly, where you didn't require tons of capital to start something, and you can be very scrappy and do it on a lower, using less resources. But um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Jeff, I have to jump in, and I'm going to wrestle with you a little bit. I understand you've painted sort of early problem-solving orientations, just by nature of the situation you were in. But then you used a word that I would never use when I think of Jeff Halonen, and that's plodding along. So that sounds like about 180 degrees from the Jeff Halonen we know,
Yeah.
who is, operates on 16 cylinders, etc. Could you tell something must have happened that moved Jeff Halonen from plodding along at GM to being the leader he is today? Was there an epiphany? Was there, a situation that surfaced that, wow?
Yeah. Okay. So I think as far as like a moment that sticks in my mind, where I went from plodding along after I graduated college, which is what I was doing, and that was uh, a a consequence of the environment that you're in. And I sat down with my manager at General Motors at the time, and we get a raise at the end of the year for like 2%, and like, hey, inflation's 4%. Like, I've gotten way better, um, and working my tail off here. Like, what's the program? Like, what's the give me a wall to run through. And the response was more, time has a lot to do with it, and avoiding eye contact, getting uncomfortable. Essentially, just sit tight and wait for like years, like tens of years, and just kind of wait for things to happen. And yeah, that made me super uncomfortable. And yeah, I left and started our first business right after that.
Do, do you have do you have an Achilles heel or a blind spot or a weakness you'd like to get rid of? Like if you were going to rebuild Jeff Halonen and add one element to who you are. Yeah, I just, in my case, I'd like to be a tougher guy. I'd like to get rid of my terminal procrastination.
Hmm.
I always get it done, but it's at the gun has to be up to my head. I would change these things that are kind of fundamental to who I am. What would you change about Jeff Halonen?
There's a decent chance the Achilles heel is diligence and a short attention span. I've been fortunate to have folks on the team to backfill for those deficiencies. I love engaging at the conceptual level, at the strategic level, but when it comes to the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day, the next week, keeping those Excel sheets up to date, running analysis over and over, uh, I'm very happy to lean on others to support that. I tend to, maybe it's just an infatuation with the new and the interesting, and the repetitive kind of falls off. But yeah, I don't mind grinding on something many times over. But if it, yeah, diligence essentially, right? Well, chasing down a financial model and reading every single square, or spending 2 hours in an Excel sheet working in a singular capacity, it's going to be difficult. So yeah, it's definitely an Achilles heel in the sense that, I'll put 15, 20 minutes into it and be like, yep, all right, done, good enough, analysis over, or go in this direction. And if I had put another 2 hours in, I probably would have discovered quite a bit more. But maybe that's a short attention spans to blame there.
I mean, fortunately, you're a leader who's put a great team around yourself that can kind of compensate in those areas. I'd love to talk a bit about that team because your team is a very unique one for I'd say, like a venture-backed technology business.
Sure.
And what I mean by unique is like there's a lot of people with the same last name. How have you made that work so successfully? Because it could go the absolute opposite direction.
Yeah, it's and it was more of the team at the beginning, and as the team's grown, it's become a smaller, quite small a slice of the overall pie. We're at about 80 folks now, but I would say is absolutely like who is the best person for this job, and just happen to know the people close around you, and so it's a pretty kind of straightforward process there, and then quite a bit of intellectual honesty, holding ourselves to account to make sure that it's not just a first come first serve, stay there forever kind of a deal, and make sure it's actually the right person for each role. And we've had very open and honest conversations, including with myself, as far as who's in the role for how long, capacity, the right person for the job, and hey, do you want to manage people? No, I don't. Great. Okay. Well, you're not getting that, right? It's not just assumed or automatic. And we've moved a lot of responsibilities around in our organization. We have a hair trigger, and this is the upside of having a squirrel-like attention span, is that you are very willing to change things and try things, which means you can iterate towards the optimal solution instead of analysis for multiple days and weeks. That goes to our organization as well. So whether it's Dean leading the sales team, and Dean was not always in sales. He was doing deployments at one point, but showed incredible talent on the sales side, ended up there. Chet's our director of customer success, manages like a third of the company, all on the deployments, support, success side. Chet actually was in sales. He was our account executive and doing extremely well. And we're still feeling some of the pain from moving him over, or we've recovered now, but we didn't understand at the time the price of pulling out a high performing sales rep, but extreme levels of diligence, like the opposite of my attention span, can chase down really intricate operational details with a lot of people. He used to be a referee in semi-pro hockey and breaking up fights. So you have a irate customer, you have no aversion to conflict and tough conversations, which is really what you need to be managing a large group of people with project-based exposure to customers who may be upset, right? They often may be for whatever reasons, or happy. And then also it's a game of discipline and organization. So in that case, we identified skill set and made the move. And then Mark Madigan is our VP of operations. Very, very gifted in ability to look at really intricate systems. And again, the opposite of me, stay up till the wee hours of the morning, doing very complex workflows. And I'll be engaged at the beginning, and then I'll be engaged at the end, and in between, a ton of magic happens in a quiet space, and that allows us to kind of map our complexity and build out different workflows and compensate for all that. Then Brent and Mark on the developer side.
I want to come back to like this family concept, because you use these concepts. You said intellectual honesty, discipline, organization, in a place where a lot of people who share the same last name or share a lot of the same blood could otherwise lead to an emotional disaster. And it hasn't. Like you operate this like, a military organization in the best possible way. Are you the person who kind of laid that foundation for intellectual honesty, or was that already existent in the Halonen ethos, or like where did that come from that this has been so successful when it could have otherwise, a lot of people say, hey, I don't want to invest in a business that has a lot of family members.
Sure.
And just one tiny addition on that to dial up the intensity of this question. You have family members there that are older than you.
Mm.
And in most families, seniority has certain privileges. So how, to Will's point, how the hell did you navigate and negotiate that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, I guess probably first looking at the prevailing concept that family type businesses are fraught, that are just sticks of dynamite. At one end, there are a lot of really successful family businesses like Walmart as a simple example. And then in our business, we're a B2B SaaS company, meaning we engage with business owners all the time. And I can't say there's a really obvious pattern where businesses that have a lot of family are more or less successful. So maybe there's some statistics to actually back it. What I think of is like when we first got started, we looked at the idea of partnering with venture capitalists, and our first reaction was, no way. You have to have people on your board. It's going to be a disaster. This story, that story. So there's all these encounters that companies have with investors, and then the train wrecks are the ones that get the clicks on TV. And so that was our impression when we started raising professional investment was VCs are just going to take the company, run it into the ground, force you to grow when you shouldn't be growing, and do all these bad things. That was absolutely our impression. That's why we started talking to just friends and family. We quickly realized that that wasn't the case, and fortunately, but I think that might be the similar situation here where society likes to watch the train wrecks and gawk at the car accidents and just associate it. So I don't know if it's backed by statistics. Someone else can look into that. But as far as how why it's not been a problem for us, or why I think it's been a tremendous asset, I mean, maybe it goes back to just not an upbringing where it's like I was just average athlete, average in school, average at everything, and there wasn't like I'm domineering, I'm running, or any of us, right? And then also there's 6 co-founders, so there wasn't really like someone that just had absolute monopoly power from the very beginning. So it forced a level of from the absolute founding of the company. It created a culture of just debate, intellectual honesty, and the best idea wins. And there's a lot of argument matches and very heated debates and a lot of conversations, but it leads to kind of the best answer. And then the other thing about maybe a business with family in it, or a business that pulls from more closer communities, people is there's another level of accountability, right? If you're working for a business that's just a nameless corporation, ABC Corp, and I'm going to walk away next week. Okay, whatever, right? You have to explain that gap on your resume, but let's just say that the social exposure to my performance and our team's performance at Steelhead could not have higher visibility, and so it's another level of accountability that has nothing to do with dollars and cents.
I like that. Family gatherings. You want to make sure everyone
long and hard about those decisions, right? Because it's going to be decades. People will be watching those decisions. So I think there's a certain added pressure and accountability that makes you think about every decision, every meeting you have, and whether it's ethics. One of our core values is integrity. How we conduct ourselves with customers, employees, and investors in new business. It adds a certain pressure to build an enduring business that's built on bricks, not sand. And so I think it's been extremely healthy.
For the benefit of our listeners, what is Steelhead in super simple terms, and why they should care about it, assuming they don't know anything about the area of business where you're operating?
Sure. Yeah, Steelhead is a technology company. We like to say a partner to our customers that provides an all-in-one system, maybe consolidated tech stack. If you're in the VC space, our customers are manufacturers. There's tens of thousands of job shops and contract manufacturers that do things like powder coating, fabricating, painting. If you drive down any old town, you see Industrial Drive. You drive down there, you look at all those little barn-looking buildings, the brick-looking buildings. Those are our customers. 9 out of 10 of them are a great customer for Steelhead. They are owned by a family. They have a tight margin business. It's very price competitive. They have anywhere from 10 to 50 to 200 people working there, and they have been left behind by the technology industry. They have an abundance of point solutions available to them. They have QuickBooks available. They have Procurify. They have all of these kind of widget singular solutions, but the problem is that they have to go buy 15 of them and run their business on 15 really good apps, including like Slack as an example, instead of having chat and Steelhead. So Steelhead provides a consolidated tech stack, anything from quoting, order entry, operating instructions, the owner's dashboards, shipping, receiving, inventory, reporting, customer portals, things like that. So it's really an all-in-one system. We help our customers compete and win with a digital plant floor. Virtually every other system out there has a paper-based plant floor in markets that we serve, and that leads to a an incompleteness of data, lack of visibility, lack of control. So we take your plant entirely digital. We obsess over the production floor, and it's an all-in-one system for small, medium-sized manufacturers in the United States of America.
And Jeff, if you were going to, from 30,000 feet, finish the sentence, Steelhead enables their customers to, how do you fill in that blank?
Steelhead helps our customers compete and win with the digital plant floor. We unlock visibility, profit and efficiency, control and traceability, data-driven insights, exceptional customer service, and freedom.
The other thing I'd add is, because there may still be some people who don't fully understand those job shops, is like, if you like your car, if you like that recent implant into your pelvis,
Yep.
if you like your office furniture, then you should in fact care a lot about all this, because all those things rely heavily on Steelhead customers.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, anything that's metal, and that turns out to be just about everything. I mean, there's some non-metal applications as well, but it's either the equipment, the things you purchase, or the equipment needed to build the things that you purchase are going through job shops and contract manufacturers. It's really a consequence of the specialization. It's very difficult for someone who's building blenders to build everything, like extraordinarily difficult. It's much simpler for them to outsource the cutting blade to one shop, and then the motor to another shop, and then the plastic injection molding to a third shop, because there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained there. The only problem with all this outsourcing is that it creates transactional costs and inefficiencies, where the cost of doing all of these small little orders with all the administration really creates a situation where you have a lot of admin versus the admin cost versus like real production cost. That ratio is, I would say, not healthy. And that's really the North Star of what Steelhead goes after every single day, is drive that admin cost as low as possible, so we can focus on the real value, and perhaps even increase the amount of outsourcing that happens, which is ultimately, there's a very good reason why people outsource. And so if we can reduce the reason why outsourcing is bad, then we think we'll have a more vibrant, robust manufacturing supply chain here in the United States and abroad.
You have to become the wiring harness. As somebody who's tried to follow a wiring harness all the way to from where it starts to where it ends, versus just knowing it works.
Yeah, go replace the wiring harness on your car, and then you'll understand.
I'd never thought of steel. I'd never heard you say that, but it makes perfect sense as somebody who's traced that wiring harness on my dirt bike, actually. So
yeah.
You mentioned the 6 co-founders. This was definitely one of the things we wanted to touch on. Again, another sort of unusual structure of a venture-backed technology business, and yet you've made it work. I remember early on you described the cap table as a Midwest hack job. Yeah. You did what you had to do to make this happen. How did you marshal, how did you marshal the resources that you needed in the early days to start to give Steelhead momentum? Because you had, team members who were doing other things that, it's possible, the sliding door could have led to them just continuing to do those things, and instead they didn't. They're now all part of this great company called Steelhead.
Correct. Steelhead was definitely not started by one or even two founders that said, we're going to build a VC-backed B2B SaaS. One of the first investors I talked to asked me about the cap table. I had to ask him to explain what a cap table was. I just didn't know what the phrase meant, and he didn't invest, unsurprisingly. But there was not a lot of it wasn't a begin with the end in mind, and this is the path we're taking. It was one of our companies, Ray Squared Solutions, was myself and Dean, and then Aaron had joined that company 6 months after we started. It was the technical sales firm, so mechanical engineers, selling into manufacturing, multiple products and projects that we supported. Like, we would call technology companies and say, hey, we'll go sell for you guys. You guys have this concept, we're going to go launch it for you. And then the other company was Lawyer Labs, and the other one was Analtech. One was a 2-person company, my 2 brothers, and then Brent and Mark. Another one was Keith at Analtech. All 3 are still with the company, but again, they were doing just small businesses, 1, 5, 10 people, doing technical projects, development for other small businesses in the industrial space, and analysis, tech development, controls, things like that. So Steelhead was co-founded by 6 people, which were comprised of 3 different companies, each that probably had 5+ contracts that they were working on. And there was a lot of trial and error. And the strategy absolutely was to figure out what worked and pursue that. Like one project that two of the companies I've worked on was a logging company. That probably is viable company. And then another one was, uh, AI PLC industrial controls for two axis control systems for metal finishing, which is how we got exposed to that industry. But absolutely, so how we got enough resources on Steelhead was, earning, resources from the other ventures, and then just, slashing expenses to the bare minimum. I lived in a $500 a month duplex for the first 5 years of my marriage, and even while owning a rental house. So, just looking at, the key financial parameter being what's my runway. Like that's kind of like the only metric that I looked at or cared about. Not like what's my income, not it's like how long can I go without any income? Okay, that's a long enough period of time. Okay, I can focus. So I really reduced the resources, because resources is people, and then that hits personal finances pretty quickly. So it's just really a matter of maintaining enough runway to focus, and that turns out wasn't that difficult. So yeah, but absolutely, those other projects we were working on were part of that, and that was, thinking back to our first fundraising round. It was actually interesting to be like, yeah, we got this company, give us $2.5 million in our Series seed round, which of course included TIA. And by the way, these folks aren't all W-2 employees. Like they're all in, believe me, but they're just wrapping up these other businesses or projects. But they're all in, and it actually wasn't until like a full year that every single person, all 6 of the co-founders, were actually a W-2 employee of the company. And but it was the majority at the beginning. So that went a long way, because we put 10 months into the company, which included like 4 sales guys and tons of development, and like a pretty significant amount, probably $1.5 million in hindsight, was just sweat equity.
Mhm. Hey, Jeff, I think about some of the things that really characterize and distinguish you, your leadership, Steelhead, and one of them is decisiveness, and in particular, making quick decisions. And this is an area that we see as a huge challenge for so many founders who, when faced with a decision, go back, think hard about it, think some more about it, open it up to the group to discuss, etc., and things linger.
Right.
You guys are the opposite. And one of the reasons, by the way, when we talk to founders about that, they're afraid of, making a bad, decision, taking a wrong turn. We don't see that with you. Wills and I have this experience where we're talking to you on our, monthly or bi-monthly call in the morning. An idea surfaces, and by the afternoon, engineering has it.
Yeah.
So can you talk, where does that, why aren't you going, whoa, 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 we're going to measure 4 times and cut once?
Yeah, I've mentioned that there's some people that in our company that have a complementary disposition to myself, and they wouldn't be so quick to call this to cast us in a positive light. I'd say like we just changed that last week. Now I have to change it again. So there is a real cost to be incurred, like on a pricing model. As an example, we just started using, like in engineering, you do like Rev A dot B or whatever. So we're on like pricing model 5.2, meaning we're on like our 5th macro pricing model, and then like the second iteration of that, and the previous one, the 4.0 series, went up to I think like 4.16. And I don't know, it's just a discomfort with knowing that you're doing something that's the wrong thing, and then just continuing to do it for a period of time. So it's I would say acceptance, or a belief that the best way to get the right answer is through iteration, and it's nearly impossible to iterate on the whiteboard. You have a static amount of facts, and you have yeah, there's just real hard limits to that, and we're in a business that's growing really quickly, and the rate of growth is continuing to increase. So if we're doing something that's not correct, it's we're going to incur more and more kind of debt by not being in that more optimal execution. So I would say there's a significant sense of urgency, and maybe it's back to the impatience or short attention span, where if we're doing something that we feel is not correct, there's, yeah, I just, yeah,
Where did
I don't stop working on it until it gets corrected or the plan's at least started. And
where
it's sometimes a bug, sometimes a feature.
where did you learn that the best way to learn things is through iteration? When did you discover that?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, we talk about Elon Musk a lot, like with SpaceX. It's
Mhm.
pretty obvious watching their execution versus someone who will think about some of the legacy players that plan for decades, versus just sending up a rocket and blowing it up and learning. Like they've advanced their product that much faster. So that is probably the role model that we looked at uh, most directly as far as you know copying behavior out in the world.
When do you think, because part of doing that involves like not being afraid, because kind of what a likely outcome is gonna be. Um, I guess, when do you think something does need a bit more deliberation versus let's go try it, see what happens. We know that 90% chance this rocket will blow up, but we're okay with that. Versus, I know like Bezos talks about like one or two-way doors. Like, do you guys have a framework for thinking about when we should spend a bit more time on something? Maybe we should analyze a bit more versus never succumb to analysis paralysis on these other types of things.
Yeah, nothing written down. Probably should be, but just kind of off the top of my head, if it's legal or compliance or cybersecurity, there's not a lot of room for creativity there. Tax, uh, whatever that may be. If we owe taxes, we owe taxes. There's not a lot of iteration there or creativity. But if we're talking about our product, if we're talking about our commercial model, if we're talking about our commercial execution, our workflows, how we do deployments, how we do the support, our customer outcomes team, which is equivalent to a CSM team, how we test product, how we do QA. So basically, if something that we can do and it delivers value to our customers, and so basically, like legal and regulatory would be out of bounds. Everything else would be in bounds, including the organization, who's doing what, the workflows. The other reason that I think we have arrived at iteration as the only path forward is just natural existential pressures. I don't find myself being very innovative and just sitting on the couch or going for a walk. I find myself coming up with ideas when you're under the gun, when you're under constraints, and there's a problem in front of you. And for us, we sell ERP to small, medium-sized manufacturers. These 3, 5, 10, 15, 200 people in these businesses, and we need to migrate their entire business to our platform, from quoting to order entry, shipping, invoicing. And that deployment is heavy. It's a big deployment. And a lot of investors did not like this at all. They like the, just click and start type of softwares. And so we face significant pressure from, and rightfully so, from the investor community that, hey, your deployments are a massive liability, especially when you're not charging for them. We charge a modest fee now to defray some of our costs, but it put us in a position where it's like we need to take the cost and the time of getting the software implemented to our customers realizing this value to getting deployed, and we need to slash it like by a lot, like cut it in half and cut it in half again. And so that's not a situation where you sit there and just chart and map for 6 months and deliberate in the next step. That's where it's like, okay, how about in that next account that just started, why don't we try this? And that next one, why don't we try that? Like, for example, we have the Steelhead hatchery. We just had a team out here from Tacoma, Washington last week. Mind you, it's their first time leaving their plant in 25 years. That kind of speaks to our customer profile. And like, this Steelhead hatchery came about because, we had a customer during deployment that said something that was just not informed. And the deployment leader was talking about it. And it's like, how are they even saying those words? They just don't get it. They clearly don't get it. And then we had talked to an advisor that had worked at a different ERP company, and said one of the challenges that they had was getting customers to do the paradigm shift of 15-point solutions to have an all-in-one. And you don't want your all-in-one to be mimicking the individual workflows of your point solutions, because they're a fundamentally different thing. It's like a paradigm shift. And they struggle to get people to see that. So like that was in my head. And then we see this problem coming in, and the guy is saying something that's very clearly highlighting that he's not in the right paradigm. And it's like, we just need to fix this. We need to do something. So it was just like, all right, let's just do this hatchery thing. Let's build a mini factory, have our customers fly out here or drive out here and do a 1 or 2 day session during deployment because we want to increase that deployment success rate. And like, I don't know, that's an example. And then that was the idea. And then we had it in our contracts, like thou shalt come to the hatchery like the next day. And we were putting up the walls because it was like, well, there's a lead time, right? Because by the time they sign, it's gonna be a month later and we can get it built in a couple of weeks. So we were still ordering equipment on Amazon and cutting 2x4s while it was already in the contract because we wanted to test it. We wanted to understand how it works. And it turns out to be a total success. People, like the customers love it. It's great for us. It helps the success rate of the projects go way up, helps accelerate it, helps create buy-in, helps discover problems early on. But that's just like one example that I can think of where it's, you know, the iterative approach is, the objective is to understand the right answer, not to set the train on the tracks and run it for 40 years. If the hatchery didn't work after 3 months, 2 months, we would have shot it. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. That's like when you start it, it's like the eject button is like on the dashboard. You have the red button, you just hit it if it doesn't work. So it's if you run your ideas with the understanding that it could be scuttled at any time. If it doesn't work, then well, it just makes it a lot easier to try it. And then it also helps to be in a situation where you have pressure, where you have to improve on something.
Well,
I love that notion that like the innovation actually comes from cumulative iteration. It's not like going on a walk or waking up one morning and having some epiphany. It's like this accumulation of tons of small iterations that no single person probably can take credit for. Is rather like we just kept moving fast and observing, marginally better ways to do things at, every slice.
Yep. Yeah, we have lots of great ideas, like hundreds of them, or maybe even 1,000 of them. And you could point to any one and say that's it. Like when we started the company, you guys probably recall the founding pitch was a digital plant operating system and AI scheduling. Like that was it. AI scheduling was a brilliant idea. You know what? It still is a brilliant idea. But it turns out that the first idea was not only required technically before you can do the AI scheduling, and it's something that's still on a roadmap, but it turns out like this one actually solved more problems than we kind of anticipated. So that's where we've built the business around, is that primary leg there. But it's it's true, just reacting to things in real time. But my point is that the AI scheduling was a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. Makes all the sense in the world, and yet it got deprioritized, and we still haven't done it. And you know what? Our customers aren't begging us to do it. We think it's got potential. We are going to do it. It's on roadmap, and it still is a great idea. And we
Hey, Jeff,
haven't done it.
you remind me of it's an adage that Wills and I have, and I think we may have coined, not all problems are worth solving or not worth solving today. What I find particularly noteworthy is you cited 2 instances where people go, God, I can't believe the customer doesn't know this. Geez, can you believe how clueless this is,
Yep.
et cetera, which a lot of us, find ourselves in the, complaining mode.
Yep.
What's interesting to us, I think, is you saw that and it's easy enough to just say, God, I can't believe these guys aren't, reading the copy or the directions or the whatever.
Yep.
Instead, you said, maybe that's not their problem. Maybe that's our problem to solve.
Correct.
That leads to one other thing I'm really curious about, and I'll use the word curious twice here. There's something about Steelhead that has this curiosity as part of their DNA.
Hmm.
It's kind of like you haven't come up with what I'd call garden variety solutions. Hatchery's not one. Implementation engineers is a different one that's got a twist,
Yep.
combined a couple of categories.
Yep.
Where is that coming from?
Yeah, I mean, relentless curiosity is one of our core values: customer obsession, relentless curiosity, grit, integrity, and realizing potential. So I think it's just
Wait a minute, coming out of General Motors, and no offense to GM, I love GM, but like where that feels like that's like going from, the regular Navy to the SEAL team. It sure feels like a big jump.
yeah. I mean, I mean, I read a lot of books, and our team does as well, and that's part of the relentless curiosity. Like a specific one on what you just mentioned, Andy, with the customer just did something that was not. They said something that was uninformed. And it's easy to say that's the customer's fault. They're a fool, whatever. But if you one book that I had read that has been embedded in my mind is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He actually was a Navy SEAL. You just mentioned the SEALs there, and it's just like a mentality of like, not like everything's my fault, but like I own that. Like, how do I fix that? And then also Influenced by Robert Cialdini. It's a book on the basics of psychology, and we've come to have a philosophy that everyone that's not writing code at Steelhead is in the business of compliance practicing. Whether you're in sales, you're trying to get someone to eat their broccoli and change their behavior, or you're in deployments, or you're in support, or you're in success. And so we've basically said, if the customer's behaving this way, or has this expectation, or said this thing, well, let's look back at the entire history of that customer. How did we set their expectations in such a way that they're saying that thing that they're saying today? Not assuming that they were just born today. Like, how did we lead them to have that expectation, or to be positioning themselves that way? But yeah, the relentless curiosity. It's just I think to be curious, you also need to be insecure, and I think it's kind of maybe tied back into the non-traditional kind of founding structure or story of Steelhead. I mean, there's a lot of technology companies out there where you have some founder that just has same levels of confidence, and I'm going to be a founder, and I'm going to raise $100 million. I'm going to build this business, and I'm going to do this and this and this. And yeah, we absolutely didn't start that way. We kind of backed into it, stumbled into it, and as the facts in front of us, justified the next step, raising the $2.5 million in capital. As an example, we had 60 grand in ARR. We were in 4 different plants. We had visited hundreds of plants, and we had a tremendous amount of confidence that it was the next step. We didn't start there, so I think kind of having a healthy ego and self-awareness and curiosity are all in one. So I think if you have all the answers, it's very hard to be curious.
Jeff, you said something, you actually said like twice, I think now, the customer was uninformed.
I used different words at the time, but
Well, no,
in this polished setting, we'll just say uninformed.
No, well, what I love about, here's what my question is. You have, I think, a deep love for your customers.
Yeah.
Like, you want your customers to succeed. We haven't even talked about what Steelhead is. And at the same time, you have this immense frustration and obsession with trying to get them to do things differently. Right? Like, there's times where you said, this can't be the way they run their plant. There's such a better way. And there's this interesting dichotomy of like deep love for your customer, but also at the same time, immense frustration. And maybe to your point about extreme ownership, it's not their fault. It's my fault. I have to solve this for them. Why? Like, where does this all come from? Why are you so obsessed with job shop manufacturers and, like this area of manufacturing and the supply chain? Like, why do you care so much?
Yeah,
Because most of the world doesn't know about job shops,
Yeah.
nor do they care about job shops. And they may not even realize how much of their life depends on job shops.
yeah. I don't think it's that unique to be in a situation where you're trying to convince someone to change their behavior to their own benefit. If you look at doctors or psychologists or coaches or something like that, if someone's signs up to run a marathon and they hire a trainer and they've never run more than a half mile in their life, you're going to absolutely have a situation where that trainer has a different view of what that individual should be doing and what they're actually going to do. I use that metaphor often with our customer, our team, even our deployment team post-sale. Like, that's why customer obsession is the number one. So if the customer signs and says, I'm going to run that marathon, oh, that's great. Like, it's not over, right? Okay. They have to get out of bed at 7 a.m. and start running up that hill. Right. They have to, make a different choice at lunchtime, and our team has to be the ones to help. That's why, we talk about, being a compliance practitioner and helping the customer, make that positive change. But as far as how we're so passionate about it, it is very interesting that we have, 80 folks that write code, sell, deploy, support. Our initial market, most of our customers are in metal finishing. this is a super nuanced market. There's 5,300 shops in the United States of America that serve this. And nothing warms my heart like walking by, someone who's graduated college 4 months previous and is on a call with the customer talking about, do you do your nickel strike in that tank or is it after that tank? Which is like, where do you do that inspection? Is it before or after nickel strike? Which is like the most nuanced, esoteric conversation you could ever have. And I bet you that individual on the phone would expect that she's been in the industry for quite a long time to be able to get to that level. And that's a benefit of the focus that we've had. And but I think a part of it is we don't have a choice to. It's a very arrogant and ineffective mentality to say, well, we just have the best software in the world. Our customers just have to figure it out. And we thought a lot about the deployment process at the beginning. We looked at ERP companies that gave the software to the customer and just a bunch of docs and said, here you go, figure it out. Unsurprisingly, they were able to have a low cost structure. We looked at ERPs that said, no, we're too fancy, we're too good to do the gritty deployment. That looks like smelly work. You have to actually deal with people and get them to change their behavior, which is extremely hard. And no, thank you. We're just going to write the code, stay in our nice office tower here, and we'll hire some third party to go do the deployment. In which case, now a third party that's billing by the hour that wants to jack up so many hours as possible. And the end outcome is on the first one, you get where the customer has to do the deployment themselves. You get a very low adoption of the technology. It's not properly deployed. Unsurprisingly, these folks are in manufacturing. They don't spend all day deploying software, and they don't manage the project properly. So you get bad outcomes, as in no value. And the other, you have high failure rates and high upfront costs, and I think conflicts of interest. So the deployment process we have is one that just said we need to make our customers successful, and this is simply the best way of doing it. So it's a little bit of a vertical integration play, but it's the customer obsession is I would say vital to everything we do, whether it's the service or the software. Their success is critical for us. We are a premium product. We're not low price. So if our customers aren't successful, then they're not going to continue using our software for a long period of time. If they're not seeing growth, they're not seeing value. So their success is vital for our success. But then in addition to that, on the human level, we have the great advantage of being in the Midwest, right next to our customers. I'm actually driving, 4.5 hours to Toronto for a one-day meeting. Tomorrow I'll probably drive by 50 potential customers or current customers. They're all over the place within a 4-hour drive: Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis. And they're these small job shop manufacturing shops. They support everything we use in society that's built in the United States, whether it's the railroad cars or computers, phones, blenders, agricultural. It touches almost every single industry. So these job shops are almost like a pancake that support every vertical. Medical, your hip implant is going through job shops. The equipment for our warfighters are going through job shops. I know Anduril just announced a plant in Ohio, 4,000 jobs there. They are going to lean heavily, very heavily on tens and tens, probably hundreds of job shops and contract manufacturers to run that production there. And then the folks that work in them, it tends to be mom and pop and family owned. And the operators, it's often entry level work or near entry level work. You're earning $18 an hour, $20 an hour. It's hard work. And if we can go in that environment and help them succeed, help them make more money, help the owner spend time growing the business, provide better wages, better customer service, and create a better business outcome. It's good for all the stakeholders: the ownership, the employees, the customers, and again, our only way to make it successful is to obsess over every single portion of it, like our documentation. Something that simple. We're migrating from a third-party documentation app to a in-house documentation app for the very simple reason that we want to get more adoption of software, of different tools by our customers, and the third-party docs that we've created. You can say, well, the docs are all right there. They can just go read them. Okay, but they're not. So take that little doc and make it smaller and put it on the shipping screen, so they don't have to go to another, so just the intricate details like that, where we can say our software is defendable, but the resources are there, and now it's the customer's fault. Well, no, it's still our fault. Iterate that even more. And we just don't have a choice but to obsess over the success of our customers. There really isn't a credible alternate.
Jeff, I have, we sometimes have founders, very good, successful founders who say, hey, and we say, why are you in this field? And they go, great market opportunity, huge TAM,
Yep.
penetrable market.
IPO 2 years.
Yeah. And it's like, that's why I'm not like, I'm not, spiritually or ethically or whatever. Like, this is not a mission for me. You feel like a man on a mission. And I'm curious if this mission goes well and you're looking down, we've taken the hill, we've done, what's happened? What have you enabled?
Yeah, I mean, our tagline is we help customers compete and win with a digital plant floor. And it's that middle part, the compete and win, that is really the action word here. And if we are fortunate enough to have the growing customer base, job shops and contract manufacturers and even small OEMs in the United States of America, it's going to be just that, competing and winning. There's a lot of global competition, geopolitics. There's a lot of onshoring. There's a lot of, economic pressures going on that are really pushing for a really vibrant and effective manufacturing base. And, if you even look at the Western powers versus the more authoritarian regimes and the amount of industrial capacity that's being consolidated into the hands of just a couple of people, it can get a little bit existential, certainly in certain end markets and at higher scale. So it's really about competing and winning. And the United States, which is where we're predominantly based, that's a much stronger and robust economy, defense posture, distribution of manufacturing, less reliance on authoritarian states and things of that nature, and economic vibrancy of the people that work in this space. And a lot of the U.S. middle class was built in manufacturing. It's been gutted by the financial and technology elites on the coast, and pump the stock market, that whole line. And this is pushing in the opposite direction, where you have thousands, tens of thousands of small manufacturers spread throughout the entire country and offer really meaningful work for large numbers of people, and also competitive to the United States of America. So compete and win is really the outcome.
Jeff, I'm curious, you're moving into maybe a slightly more macro kind of discussion here. And I have wondered often about you, like, is the obsession and mission around this, is it an American story? Is it an underdog story? Is it, I just hate inefficiency? But you started to hit on, like, hey, the state of our manufacturing supply chain. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend recently who's training to become a pilot. And now that he's a pilot, whenever he's on a commercial airline, he starts to listen to the pilot chatter. I was like, well, now that you know more, are you impressed by how it all runs? Are you horrified by how it all runs, or something else? And what he said back to me was, one of the big surprises to me is just how much human decision-making and communication is involved in making sure, like, planes fly safely. Like, when you land, it's not like you have Google Maps that takes you to your gate. It's a bunch of people communicating, and it's like a series of codes, right? Here, you're going to take a left. It's not even left, right. It's A, B, whatever. He was like, it's kind of shocking, but it works. Have you had a similar experience as you guys have dove really deep into this area of the American supply chain? Are you amazed by how it works? Are you frightened? Are you?
Yeah, I think that's
What's your perspective on it?
I think that is the operative word. It does work. And whenever we need to check ourselves and our pride, because it's easy to say, well, if you're not using our system, you're surely going to perish because we're just that sweet. It's like, well, let me just remind you that they exist, and they've existed for 20 years, and they are financially viable, because I guarantee no one's pumping equity capital into that enterprise. So let's just start there and say it works. But it's very common for us to run into situations where folks will, we kind of make paper the boogeyman, because we do think that if you run your production floor on paper, the symptoms that manifest from that critical from that cause are really large, and it can be pretty comical. Folks will have a full-time person that does nothing but scan paper, just take paper down the process and scan it and click the PDFs and put it in there. You'll have situations where they're measuring the paper usage in pallets of paper per month, or how many printers do you go through. I think the number was like either 12 or 23, like physically, mechanically wear out a printer, like buy one and use it until it breaks and then dispose of it and then install a new printer. So you do hear some pretty comical stories for companies that are not that big, like 150 people, and they're going through like 20 printers a month. Or you get situations where they're getting phone calls from the customer saying, "Hey, where's my parts? Where's my order?" And it takes anywhere from 2 days or from 2 hours to the next day just to answer a very simple question. You order a pizza and the pizza, you know where the pizza's at all times. Amazon, similar type of experiences. So you kind of run into like laughably solvable problems. But we do always remind ourselves that they that they do exist. The businesses do work, and it also is a good reminder for the value that we can provide. And I like to think of Steelhead as like a wiring harness in a vehicle. If you've ever looked at a wiring harness after it's taken out of a vehicle, it's very complex. You touch that button, this motor in the back has to move, and this, if I hit the brake pedal, this thing has to happen, and this all has to happen. So what software can do, software has very real limits. So what software can do is it can take different points and connect them, and it can reduce the friction. So it's the electrical engineering equivalent is like the wiring diagram and then the impedance of the wire, right? We can make lower impedance on the wire and things flow more efficiently. But the wiring diagram doesn't actually do the work. Like that's the engine, that's the value creator. So those are the folks out on the floor, that's the equipment, like that is the production. So the thing that works is the actual thing creating value. So we can sit here and say, well, they don't have a fancy heads-up display with Google Maps, but that's just a layer of efficiency on top of what actually works, what's actually valuable, what's actually generating the value. The airplane and the pilot are generating the value. And yes, we can poke fun at their workflows and upgrade them, which is, what we do all day long. That's our entire business. But that's a part of the reason why we've leaned into the deployment organization, because there are real limits to software. Even with all the AI, there are things that humans do well. Like our deployment team, it's like, well, we could just give you the software and a bunch of documentation. You do it yourself. Okay, well, that's not going to happen. Well, let's put in a chat bot to help them. Okay, we'll try a lot. I won't even try that. Like this is not a viable solution. It's not going to work. How about we put a human being in Tulsa and have them spend a week inside the plant? Okay, turns out that works like a lot, like 95%. And turns out we can manage the economics pretty easily and get really efficient around that. So to answer your question, yes, there are those laughable instances where it's like, I can't believe how many printers they use per month, or pallets of paper, or how long that phone call takes, or how many people I have doing this function or that function, or how many phone calls a day they get, which can be completely eliminated. But we do try to, keep in context that the value is being generated by them, and we are augmenting their value. And there's almost like a floor. Like, for example, if someone spends $12,000 a year in cost entering in orders, which is a real number from a real shop, and we're like, okay, well, we can do AI order entry. We can take that to near zero. Okay, well, you can take $12,000 of cost to zero. Well, can you take it below zero? Can you start making money on order entry? No, because it's overhead, and you just eliminated some overhead. So now it's like, whereas if I install a new line or I hire a new operator, okay, now they're actually adding more value. So, we like to, enable the success of our customers and be at peace with the fact that they are the value generators, not us. We're helping.
You said something really interesting, Jeff, that I wish every entrepreneur would remember. And that is, all these customers survived before Steelhead or before whatever company.
Yes.
So it's not like these people are like going down in a whirlpool about to die and you're throwing them a life preserver. And you said something else, which is the key. The only way you win is if you can change their behavior.
Correct.
I just want to, in our final few minutes, and I know we're over time, so we'll pay you time and a half. Just want to touch on a couple more things if we can. As a leader, you're a guy who, and we've heard this, when you walk into the room with all your employees there, they know and I mean this in a positive way, the general has arrived. And very often that can have a stifling effect on innovation, on people willing to say, I'm sorry, I disagree, or here's an idea that's different from yours. How have you managed to keep that, both be the general, but also have that kind of culture of, challenge, innovation, best idea wins? How do you manage that, navigate it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of marketing to staff or having nice inspirational posters. I think it's behavior and behavior consistency. And what I mean by that is, uh, I mentioned the Steelhead docs becoming native in the platform. We're also building Steelhead University native in the platform. So it used to be something that was, or still is, a third-party app that we use for online training, but it's an administrative disaster. Our compliance isn't nearly where we want it. So we want to make it more bite-sized, make it in-app to drive the utilization much higher, to realize the value that we want to there. Um, so the story here is I was just, out chatting with the team, and they were talking about Steelhead University. And of course, I'm very curious, like, okay, deployment team, is it effective if this customer takes the Steelhead training courses, the Steelhead University? Oh, it's night and day. Like, if a customer doesn't take it, it just significantly drags it out, and just, okay, super obvious. Okay, double check. Yep, it's all true. And then, what's our compliance rate? Okay, we have like 10 or 20% of people taking it. Okay, what if we could go higher? And basically, so it was like a situation where there was an issue, and it was converted into action, and it just made sense. So um, we, I think it kind of goes back to the relentless curiosity, where the right idea wins, and meritocracy and healthy debate and discussion. And, you can have energy and be, motivated, and keep things moving, and all that, and push the team to perform. But I think if there's a pattern of behavior where, someone's idea, because they sit in a position, is better than the next person's idea, I think people will recognize that pattern like immediately. And I can think of nothing more revolting. And I like to think that we live by that. And then also, I'd say, a lot of engagement by the leadership team at the action level. The other week, Dean, our CRO, said he was on 20 sales calls. I was on 6 that week. So like, it's like, okay, we're actually talking to the customers. Next week, I'm going to a plant. I've probably been in, 6 or 7 plants already this year. You're talking to the customer, you're talking to the folks doing the work, you're helping them, you're diving in on problems. And yeah, you don't have any situations where someone's just clinging to some obscure idea. So I think it's probably just behavioral. And then, if you do see an instance where someone's clinging to a bad idea because of whose idea it was, or someone's ego, then yeah, that's just deal with that, and move on.
Hey, we want to run a 2-minute drill on you. And so we're going to fire some questions. Maybe you fire some answers. The, let's talk about advice. The thing that you will never do again is,
Overpromise.
okay. And the thing that you're always going to do no matter what.
Understand the viewpoint of the other person that I'm talking to.
Any advice that you were given that you didn't take but wish you had had?
I have a very selectively positive memory. I don't know if it's a feature or a bug, but nothing comes to mind. We tell you about all the good stuff, the advice I have followed, but all the negative side just tends to get archived somewhere.
And there's like a classic question of, knowing what you know today, what advice would you give young Jeff Halonen starting his career?
Yeah, I would say simplify. Like, simplify your focus, and be proactive, and yeah, begin with the end in mind, and read and study, and understand things from their base principles, and talk to people, and understand the human capacity of people that are in various positions, and understand what's possible out there, and how they got into the position they're in. Because I think what you'd realize is there's just a lot of normal people out there that are doing incredible things. And they're just kind of normal people that found an idea, and found the energy, and found the motivation, and the drive to do it. I think the Tiger Woods type folks in the world are a minuscule portion, but there's this pretty decent sized chunk of the world that's 2, 3, 5%, 10% trailing that perform at super high levels, that are just normal people, like like myself, feel like I'm a normal person, and then just find themselves in a situation where they are able to try hard enough, long enough, and have an open mind and discover and find themselves in a position where there's a tremendous amount of luck involved, but then there's a willingness to move forward with the opportunity at hand.
And if you were going to, in a sentence, write the Jeff Halonen epitaph, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, it's a little strange to talk about myself like this, I guess. I don't know. I certainly have my version that I've thought about in the past, but I'd say being a good person and someone that's concerned for others and someone that's a net positive uh, on everything that they do.
And the final question, other than family, is there a person you'd like to thank and why?
Probably one of our first major customers, Dana Schimpf. He bought absolutely on a dream, took an absolute flyer on us, and was willing to pay the price that we were asking based on a concept, and took a tremendous amount of risk, uh, uh, opportunity cost, maybe more so than risk, but still, disruption to his enterprise, and took a big leap. Worked out really well for him, and his business has been doing really well. Partially thanks to Steelhead with the profit tracking that we've been able to provide him, but him and tens and tens of customers that have proceeded to go forward with Steelhead, knowing full well the age of the enterprise and the nascency of it, but having faith in the people that were giving the word that they were going to do something. So I would say that's the we wouldn't be here without those early customers that took us at our word and were willing to in a way risk their enterprises and their livelihoods and their businesses to do work with us.
Awesome.
Well, we thank Dana as well. Thank you, Jeff. This was great.
That's incredible.
Really, really appreciate you going along with us.